next steps. We're going to want to go ahead and create an endorsement template. So where we're going to go is to settings, export and exchange, and endorsement templates. We're going to be in settings, export, exchange a lot right now in this next hour. But the endorsement template is essentially what's going to allow you to specify your bait stamping format, how you're going to want to bait stamp these documents. And so let's go ahead and create one. And let's name it January test endorsement. So what we're going to do here is generally the prefix has something to do with the case. So let's say that this is what would be a good case? I'm just looking around my room right now. I see my White Sox bobbleheads. Let's go with White Sox v. Cubs, because that's a big rivalry here in Chicago. And then you go with next number. So this has to do with the case. And then the next number, where people will make a mistake, is saying, oh, like I've only got like a few thousand documents, so I should be good with this being my next number. The problem is that every single page of these documents are going to be stamped. So it's not just the document count, it's every page on those documents. And so once you reach 9,999 pages, which can happen very quickly, then this endorsement template is going to look wonky, and you're going to have to undo the Bates numbering and re-edit your endorsement template and then re-stamp those documents. So we always recommend giving yourself plenty of space, maybe 6 or 7 zeros before the 1, so that you have plenty of space within your documents. And so this is what it's going to look like, is that next number starting off at 1, White Sox versus Cubs, 0000001. The next thing is going to be these numbering exceptions. So this is automatically going to provide numbering exceptions for specific document types. And what that means is it's going to assign a native placeholder to these documents that generally don't image all that well, like Excels, PowerPoints, CSVs. If you recognize the star, the asterisk, the wild card, as we call it, that is saying that we are grabbing any documents that have a file extension of .xls, XLSX, XLT, all those sorts of things, so on and so forth. So these documents that typically, as standard practice, don't image all that well, we are going to assign it a native placeholder. And essentially what a native placeholder is instead of trying to bait stamp each and every page of those documents, like we're doing with all those regular documents like emails, Word documents, and so on and so forth, that are pretty standard in how they appear, we are going to, because Excel's, you know how Excel's can go all the way to the right and all the way down, depending on what type of numbers or what kind of information is being kept in there. Instead of trying to stamp all of those pages, we're just going to create a native placeholder that is one page document saying this page represents this document as a whole. So the next thing that we're going to do here is look at how we want this to show up. So if you recall, we have, so this is going to be where we want our placement of our baits and our confidentiality stamping. So any documents that we marked as confidential, whatever confidential stamping we used is going to be in the left side, or maybe let's move it to the right side. Whereas maybe we want all the Bates numbering to be on the left side. This is just your preference, how your firm goes about bait stamping, but you can customize this. And then you can preview to see what it's going to look like. So if there is confidential stamping, it will show up on the right. And each page that gets stamped, this is what it's going to look like on the left for that Bates numbering. If you want to add additional endorsements, you certainly can. You can type in whatever it is that you need, if it's maybe your firm name or something that, but just keep in mind that this is going to be stamped on every single page of every document. I think you can add up to 8 4 additional endorsements. I don't know why anyone would ever need to. It just seems like it's taking up too much space. But if you need to, you certainly can. And then we go ahead and save, and there is our endorsement template. And so now I can go to my review and I can number and endorse my production folder that we've created. January test endorsement. If you have multiple templates, just make sure that you're using the correct one that you want to use. And then go ahead and I'm going to start this at 1. So one of the things I want to point out here is that if you were to use this stamping template again, because you had additional documents you needed to produce, it's going to keep track of the last time that you use this. And so it will say it's going to start at 257 if that was the last time that it used. And so you don't have to keep track of that for this. But now we're ready to go ahead and endorse. And that numbering and endorsing has started. So one of the things while we're waiting for that to go, because what it's doing is it's re-imaging each one of these documents. Each one of these documents is being re-imaged, and that bait stamp and or confidentiality is being stamped on there as well. But while we wait for that to happen, I just wanted to point out that when you go to endorse documents and stamp them, you might get a couple of different warnings. One of which could be documents are marked privilege in your set. And we obviously don't have any privileged documents in here, but that's another QC measure that's built into the app to make sure that we think about whether or not we want to actually produce or bait stamp privileged documents. And so it's recommended you remove these files from your folder, but sometimes people want them bait stamped anyways. So just wanted to point out that there is that warning as well if we had failed to go through that QC process. It'll also let you know if these documents have already been endorsed. If there's documents within there that have already been endorsed. But where you can see that this has now started processing is if I go to data and imports. I know that we're not importing anything, but we can see that there's active jobs. And so it's working its way through, it's running through that processing of those images. And so one of the things that I do to kind of QC my production is I like using this eyeball to preview the document. I don't need to go into every single document and make sure that every single page has been stamped accordingly and correctly, because that's just kind of a waste of time, not very useful. But I like to go through the first few. And so you can see, we can see that the stamping has actually started. There we are, White Sox v. Cubs, 0006. Click down, and it's working its way through. And so I wouldn't necessarily recommend going through every single document, but I like going through to the end and then seeing whether it's made it. And it hasn't made it all the way through here to the end of processing these documents and re-imaging them, at least not yet. But once it gets there, it will actually send you a push notification as the person who kicked off the endorsement. It will send you a push notification email when this process has completed. So then you can go back and check to make sure that everything looks good.